Good day. It's May 25th, 2026. It's Memorial Day weekend in the U.S. as the country remembers its fallen heroes from the two world wars and the succeeding foreign wars where America got involved with in defense of freedom and democracy. I'm Jessica Rolla. Welcome to The Pulse.
And I'm Joe Boban. Welcome to this week's edition.
Happy Memorial Day, America. As the first semester for the year of the U.S. Supreme Court is winding down, another important decision came out last week in a case that is important to women's health and abortion rights in this country, similar to the Roe versus Wade that the High Court reversed. But this case has something to do with the legal access of mifepristone, the abortion pill that are legally used to induce abortion at the early stage of pregnancy that physicians can prescribe to their patient who wants to end pregnancy. Mifepristone has been available also by telehealth and mail order with prescription from physicians. But a federal court in New Orleans was asked by the state of Louisiana to ban the sales of mifepristone by mail, who asked the High Court to make a ruling on an FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, order that lifted the ban nationwide of access by mail of mifepristone, the abortion pill. Here's the background of the case. So in 2021, while Joe Biden was president, the Food and Drug Administration lifted the ban on the access by mail of mifepristone. And the state of Louisiana, whose legislature was among the advocate for ending abortion rights under Roe versus Wade, asked the court to ban the sales or access of the drugs by mail. The lower court issued a temporary halt in injunction on the continued access to the drugs by mail and telehealth, while the study is being conducted. So two pharmaceutical companies and women's rights groups appealed the case to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that has jurisdiction in Louisiana, composed mostly of conservative judges. The Fifth Circuit agreed with the lower court, who issued a pause against the FDA lift on the ban, while medical research is continuing on the safety of the drugs. Last week, the Supreme Court of the U.S., in a 7-2 decision in the case titled Louisiana versus FDA, allowed the continued telehealth and shipping of mifepristone while a study or research on the drug is being conducted. So this was deemed a temporary victory for the two pharmaceuticals company and women's rights nationwide. So let's take a commercial break, but stay with us for an interview with Assemblyman Joe Dahlia, who is running for state treasurer in the Democratic primary, when we come back.
For over 15 years, I've defended rights, upheld due process, and will bring balanced judgment, compassion, and unwavering commitment to the Henderson Justice Court. If you live in Henderson, remember to vote in June, and remember, Hendren for Henderson.
Lance Hendren, fair, experienced, and ready to serve Henderson with integrity. Lance Hendren, the right person for the bench. Paid for by the committee to elect Hendren for judge.
My family survived a genocide and war before we fled to America. With education and hard work, I became an attorney and activist. We made Las Vegas our home for the Nevada dream, opportunity and affordability. Today, that dream is in crisis. But by supporting working families, small business, affordable housing, and childcare, we will rise again. I'm Lena Hovanesian, and I'll be your champion on the Clark County Commission fighting for our Nevada dream.
Excuse me, are you Judge Mary Perry?
Yes, I'm Judge Mary Perry.
Looks like you're running for re-election.
Primary's June 9th, Family Court, Department P.
Department P, P for Perry.
Judge Mary Perry.
I'm Judge Mary Perry, and I approve this message.
Susie Lee calls herself the most bipartisan member of Congress. What does that mean? She voted to let Donald Trump spy on your phone and emails without a warrant. And she voted to unleash ICE on our communities, disappearing hardworking immigrants and even citizens right off our streets. But Dr. James Lally will never compromise our democratic values to fall in line with Donald Trump. It's time to choose a real Democrat to represent Nevada. It's time to choose Dr. James Lally.
Welcome back to The Pulse. With us now here at our PhilAm TV studios is Assemblyman Joe Dahlia, who is now running for State Treasurer. Assemblyman Joe Dahlia, welcome to The Pulse.
Thank you for having me.
I understand the State Treasurer will term out by January 4 next year, after being in 8 years in office then. So you are one of those running for the position that Zach Conine will leave behind. Please tell our audience about yourself and your professional background.
Sure. So I'm currently a Democratic State Assembly member for District 29, which is my childhood district. I'm married to my college sweetheart. We're raising 3 beautiful daughters there. Before being in the legislature, I grew up in that same district in a working class union family. My mom was a healthcare worker. My dad was a poker dealer. I was the first member of my family to go to college. I graduated with high honors, a degree in economics from Boston University, one of the top programs in the country. Went on to be a chief financial officer of a company. And then I started my legal career advising sovereign wealth funds, venture capital funds, and other financial institutions. So I got kind of a 360 view on finance from the perspective of a student, from the perspective of a chief financial officer, and then from the perspective of an attorney on the outside advising on risk. And so I brought this great financial experience into the legislature, and I used that to work on legislation that was intended to generate revenue. Because one of the least exciting, most important problems we have to solve in legislature is how are we going to fund government, right? We are constantly up against the budget. Even in good years, we find ways to run out of money very quickly because there are a lot of really good programs that are underfunded. And so when we have revenues, people say, well, now's the time to work on, teachers aren't making enough. Now's the time to work on our infrastructure is underfunded. Now's the time to work on, mental health in the state is in a really rough spot. So there are all these possible outlets for funds, and there are very few ways to generate new revenue. And so I came in with a thesis of, I'm going to help fund government. And so I ran 2 bills, AJR 8 and AB 239. That's known as the business court legislation, and the associated companion bill 239. That was intended to make us competitive with Delaware for revenue extending from business filings. And so are you guys familiar with the Delaware Court of Chancery?
Not too familiar.
Okay. And I'm guessing the viewers aren't either. But essentially when you file your business paperwork, you're recommended to do so in Delaware because they have this specialized business court for business disputes. And because of that, they've turned that into about a $4 billion annual revenue source that they use to fund their education system. And for us, we have always been competitive in that market, but the thing that's really held us back is that our judiciary doesn't keep up with Delaware's. And so I came in with this kind of unique background, and I brought to the table the experience of knowing we can be competitive for this if we make certain judicial reforms. And so we passed those 2 bills, had to do a lot of education to folks. We got bipartisan coalitions overwhelming in both houses. And we had the support of the governor's office. So we found a way to build this overwhelming coalition to fund government. And we saw immediate results from that. We got millions of dollars in net new revenue through the Secretary of State's office. And the largest venture capital fund in the country moved here, and they cited in their press release that they were doing so because of those 2 pieces of legislation at no cost to the taxpayers. And so huge opportunity for us to build on that in the state treasurer's office. For me, being interested in policy, being interested in finding ways to fund government and make life easier for folks, this was the perfect office and outlet to do that.
So what are the duties of the state treasurer?
So there's a multitude of them. This is the state's chief financial officer and the chief investment officer. It's also kind of the de facto chief revenue officer. If there's anyone in government whose job it is to fund government, it's the state treasurer. And there are a lot of responsibilities that fall into that bucket. There's an investment wing, debt management wing, financial literacy, college scholarships, and a few other programs. And so what you're looking at is a pretty broad array of programs to help folks with.
Okay, and so let's talk about the rainy day fund.
Yes.
How big is it, and how much of this fund can be used to alleviate the shortage in Medicaid funding?
Yeah, so it's about $1.244 billion. So that's at the statutory cap, 26% of general fund appropriations by statute. I served on the Health and Human Services Committee, and so I got to sit in the Assembly and hear folks talk about kind of the devastating cuts we're going to see because of the Trump administration's huge cuts to Medicaid and what that's going to flow through to Nevadans. The rainy day fund could help on the front end with some of that, but I need to temper expectations because the difficulties that we're seeing, that the rainy day fund is not a long-term solution to any funding shortage, right?
Got
It can be used as a Band-Aid. We used it during COVID by issuing a fiscal emergency and saying, okay, now we're going to use this to make sure we don't have to do even more devastating budget cuts.
I see.
And so it's designed to get us through a very short-term emergency. The Medicaid cuts we're talking about, we could use it to bridge the gap, but that's where it gets so important that we get new leadership in this November and in November 2028, because some of these cuts, the only fix is that at the federal level, we reverse them. So.
And so what are the legislative, I don't know if you explained that already, or administrative process under Nevada rules that the government had to do in order to be able to use a reserve or the rainy day funds?
Yeah, so currently it's designed for serious revenue shortfalls or fiscal emergencies. And so when you look at COVID, it was kind of the perfect example where the governor issues a fiscal state of emergency, and then the Ways and Means Committee or the Finance Committees essentially come together and deploy capital. So.
Gotcha.
That's kind of the process for how we use it. I think there are some ways that we can use it to address some of the economic hardships that we're going to see from the Trump administration, because folks are really struggling right now. And I do think there's a role for the rainy day fund, especially since we've hit the cap and we do have a little bit of latitude to cut into that a little bit. But we just need to be responsible about it and make sure that we're not setting ourselves up in a situation where we're going to have to actually cut other things because we put a Band-Aid on a problem.
What kind of professional experience should a state treasurer have in order to be effective on the job?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think you want someone with financial experience and business experience. And so I actually have an interesting background where the last two Democratic state treasurers, Kate Marshall and Zach Conine, were both business attorneys. I'm also a business attorney.
Right.
I also have legislative experience. We actually haven't elected someone with legislative experience since the 1980s. And so I think, honestly, for this role, there's a host of executive functions to the office, like the ones I described: the investment arm, debt management, college savings programs. The management of that is mostly about having that financial background, knowing how to manage people, manage money responsibly. But then the legislative piece of the office is where it gets really interesting, because there's 5 bills that this office gets. As a state legislator in my first term, I got 6. And so it's almost a lateral move. Like, you can come in, and if you have the right experience and the right relationships in Carson City, you can really turn this office into something that can help people. It doesn't have to be defined by its current limitations. You can transform the office into something greater. And so that's where I think my experience maps really well to the office, because I have the fiscal experience. I do have the legal experience as well that we've seen in our last 2 Democratic treasurers. And so that maps really well to the current responsibilities of the office. But I also have that legislative experience that is going to allow me to make the most of the biggest asset this office has, which is its legislative agenda. So.
Great. And so we're almost out of time for this segment. So we will let you speak to your voters out there and everyone out there that has, meet Joe Dahlia. So you can speak to directly to the camera.
Well, thank you. I am running. Again, my name is Joe Dahlia. I'm currently in the State Assembly running for State Treasurer to make your life easier, better, and more affordable. I'm the only candidate running with elected or legislative experience. I'm also the only candidate running with plans to save the Millennium Scholarship and make historic investments in our state infrastructure bank so we can put jobs and affordable housing into our community. If you are looking for a candidate who will not just manage the status quo, but fight for greater, I am your candidate. I would love to have your support. Again, my name is Joe Dahlia. I'm running to make your life easier, better, and more affordable. Thank you.
Assemblyman Joe Dahlia, running for state treasurer in the Democratic primary. Thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for more news after a brief station ID and program ID.
In another national headline news last week, ABC reported that a secret settlement between the IRS, or the Internal Revenue Service, and the Trump Justice Department that would have cost American taxpayers close to $1.8 billion. The ABC News made public the reported deal that has been proposed in favor of Donald Trump and the Trump Organization to settle the $10 billion lawsuit against the Internal Revenue Service, or the IRS, leaking his tax return in 2019 that was widely publicized. But a federal judge of the court where Trump filed the lawsuit has questions relating to the unusual nature of the lawsuit, never seen before in an American history. The judge questions absence of adversarial relationship of the plaintiff and the defendant. In a typical tort case, the plaintiff, who is the aggrieved party, don't sue themselves in this case. Trump is the plaintiff and he is suing for damages the IRS, which he controls as chief of the executive branch, suing the agency that he himself controls. The judge consulted with lawyers and former jurists for opinion of this case. But the DOJ's acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, who is a former criminal defense lawyer for Trump, rushed a proposal to settle the lawsuit with American taxpayers' dollar, amounting to $1.788 billion, which would compensate Trump's allies who were prosecuted, mostly were criminally prosecuted, election deniers and January 6 rioters, according to the details reported by ABC and analyzed by the Political magazine. The lawsuit soon deteriorated within days when a judge had asked the sons of Donald Trump and the Trump Organization to file an explanation if there is an adversarial relation between the plaintiff and the defendant. But within 36 hours after the DOJ proposed the settlement became public, the plaintiff in the case, two Trump sons and the Trump Organization, filed in court and told the judge that they should no longer be required to file an answer because they voluntarily dropped the case. Why? Because the Justice Department already have the deal with the IRS for almost $1.8 billion. $1.776 billion is a lot of taxpayers' money that could use for SNAP benefits for hungry families with children. But the U.S. Treasury called it Anti-Weaponization Fund. Congress are already asking whose idea was this because the Treasury's General Counsel, Brian Morrissey, resigned after the story about this secret fund hit the media circuit. The lawyers from both sides of the aisle cried foul on this deal to pay Trump allies who had been prosecuted, including January 6 rioters, saying this is a huge amount of money to pay those who violated the laws without oversight. A Capitol Police officer who was injured in the J6 riot has filed a lawsuit against the administration to block the slush funds that the DOJ and the IRS agreed upon. Let's take a commercial break. Please stay with us for interview with Mac Glenhill, candidate for Nevada State Assembly.
For over 15 years, I've defended rights, upheld due process, and will bring balanced judgment, compassion, and unwavering commitment to the Henderson Justice Court. If you live in Henderson, remember to vote in June. And remember, Hendren for Henderson.
Lance Hendren, fair, experienced, and ready to serve Henderson with integrity. Lance Hendren, the right person for the bench. Paid for by the committee to elect Hendren for judge.
We use headphones as a part of our everyday lives. Whether we're at work, getting exercise, meditating, in transit, studying, practicing, or relaxing.
Hi, I'm Ryan Sway, the founder of Aircom. I would like to introduce the world's first wireless airflow audio earbuds. As a festival and a concert junkie, I really enjoy the live experience of being there and feeling the music. When we started developing Airflow, our goal was to reproduce that live experience using earbuds.
The problem with traditional headphones is that the speakers are located inside of the earpiece, literally giving you centimeters before the audio hits your eardrum.
What Aircom is doing, they're the first company to actually address the fact that there needs to be a space involved associated with having the sound waves expand fully.
The difference between traditional headphones and Aircom audio is that the air tube gives you 8 times more space, allowing the sound waves to fully develop before they actually hit your eardrums. And this gives it a much more live, natural sound, just like in a recording studio.
It's real nice that someone actually addressed the physics associated with how sound comes out.
The challenge we had was to create an earbud with enough airspace for the sound to fully develop and breathe. Unfortunately, traditional earbuds are about the size of a jelly bean, and there's just not enough airspace. However, that changed when we developed Airflow Audio. Airflow uses an air tube to deliver 6 to 8 times more airspace than traditional earbuds. The end result is a true live listening experience, just like you're at a festival or a concert. We also added magnets to the back of the earpieces, so you can wear it around your neck when you're not using it.
Being that the drivers are 8 inches from the earpiece, the magnets do not affect the integrity of the sound at all.
The orange line represents the frequency transmitting through the wire to the speaker, which then converts to the blue sound wave that develops more as it travels up the air tube, producing a balanced, full body and live listening experience.
Another really cool feature is that these earbuds are sweat-proof and water-resistant because they're coated with a super hydrophobic nanotechnology. So now you can be on a skateboard or riding a motorcycle and listen to music as if you were watching a live show or actually in a recording studio.
We're coming to you for help in bringing these unparalleled earbuds to market.
My family survived a genocide and war before we fled to America. With education and hard work, I became an attorney and activist. We made Las Vegas our home for the Nevada dream, opportunity and affordability. Today, that dream is in crisis. But by supporting working families, small business, affordable housing, and childcare, we will rise again. I'm Lena Hovanesian, and I'll be your champion on the Clark County Commission fighting for our Nevada dream.
Excuse me, are you Judge Mary Perry?
Yes, I'm Judge Mary Perry.
Looks like you're running for re-election.
Primaries June 9th, Family Court, Department P.
Department P, P for Perry.
Judge Mary Perry.
I'm Judge Mary Perry, and I approve this message.
Susie Lee calls herself the most bipartisan member of Congress. What does that mean? She voted to let Donald Trump spy on your phone and emails without a warrant. And she voted to unleash ICE on our communities, disappearing hardworking immigrants and even citizens right off our streets. But Dr. James Lally will never compromise our democratic values to fall in line with Donald Trump. It's time to choose a real Democrat to represent Nevada. It's time to choose Dr. James Lally.
Welcome back to The Pulse. With us now here at PhilMTV Studios is Mac Glenhill, running for a seat in the State Assembly District 1. Mac, welcome to The Pulse.
Hello.
Let's start by telling our audience of your personal and occupational background.
So my name is Mac Gledhill. I'm a Democrat running for Assembly District 1. I am a substitute teacher. I recently finished school at UNLV and jumped straight into this race.
And where's Assembly District 1? Give us some ideas, some street borders perhaps, or landmarks.
Yeah, so the northern part of the district is around Shadow Ridge High School.
Oh, okay.
Then down through Aliante, the Aliante Casino is a part of the district. And then all the way down to the south, the district ends at Craig Ranch Park. So it's kind of a tall and skinny district.
Okay. So what made you get interested in running for a seat in the legislature, and what are the top on the issues if you want to work in, if you do get elected?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have been in politics for about 10 years. I started as a teenager. I was really motivated by the fight for marriage equality. It taught me how important politics is and how it can really change your life. And I was working on Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign back in 2020. And then throughout college, I worked with a lot of organizations on different political issues. But what really made me want to run for office was living through the mass shooting at UNLV 2 years ago. It really gave me a sense of urgency, and that if we want things to change, we need people who are willing to step up and fight for justice. And I think that includes young people. We need young people and survivors at the table so that we can make sure that Nevada is a safe place to live. So gun violence is definitely something I want to address at the legislature.
This is an open seat you are running on, or are you challenging an incumbent in this primary election?
I'm running for an open seat. So Danielle Monroe Moreno is the current Assemblywoman. She's running for mayor of North Las Vegas. And so I'm running in an open primary to replace her.
We're almost out of time for this segment. So last words are yours. Talk to your voters. This is your pitch.
So I got into this race because I lived through a tragedy at UNLV 2 years ago. It taught me that politics is important, that the stakes of this election can literally be life or death. We need leaders who are ready to step up. I'm also a Democrat that doesn't accept corporate PAC money. I think it's important we get money out of politics so that our politicians actually work for us and not wealthy special interests. Nevada deserves a bold vision and a new generation of leadership. And as one of the youngest people running in the entire state, I am ready to push for new ideas and new blood and have our state move forward in a way that works for everyone.
Matt Gledhill, candidate for Assembly District 1, thank you for talking to Joe and I today, and good luck on your race.
Thank you so much.
And to our viewers, please join us again next week for a new edition. I'm Jessica Rolla. Thank you for watching.
And I'm Joe Buban. Happy Memorial Day, and do not forget, early voting has started in May 23. And God bless your week, and don't forget to vote.